Holiday your heart out at OldNavy.com with jeans on sale for one day only today. That's right, Old Navy jeans are just $10 for adults and $8 for kids and toddlers. Online only at OldNavy.com. Valid 11/26, select styles only.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for America's favorite movie review podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, the Grinch to my Cindy Lou Who. It's Robert Winfrey. Yay!
I feel like there's no way you can numerically support anything you just said.
Let's start with the obvious one. I feel like you are the Grinch to my Cindy Lou Who.
I mean, you can feel that way, but you don't have actual data to support it.
How would you surmise or propose that I gathered data that you are, in fact, the Grinch?
Well, I would prefer to go with how about we start with the other end of things? Are you a 2-year-old Who child?
You'll never know.
I mean, your wife would be very surprised to find that out.
No, she wouldn't.
Okay, probably not. That's fair. I am not covered with green fur.
Mm-hmm.
I do not live in a cave in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do live in Utah, so a cave in the mountains, Utah, same thing.
Not the same thing.
I'll be the judge of that.
I won't. More importantly, I feel this is my fault. You see, Mark said before we came on, okay, I'll introduce you. I've got a big intro planned for you this time, so don't introduce yourself. And I said, fine. We reminisced about some technical difficulties that we have with some of that, and he said, right before we started, oh, crap, I don't actually have anything planned.
I wasn't talking about the intro. I've been planning the intro since I saw The Grinch, which is the movie we're reviewing tonight. What I said, I didn't have any of the websites up. Like, I didn't have Box Office Mojo or Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. That's what I meant by I had nothing prepared.
Fair enough. Anyway, yes, tonight we will be reviewing The Grinch, the latest adaptation of Dr. Seuss's classic story of the magic of Christmas overcoming even the smallest of hearts, and all but the most willfully terrible of people. And this is going to be a relatively fast show, guys. I'm pretty sure, but
yeah, it is.
Let me start out with this, because we've been building this up over the last couple of weeks, and there's only one question we all need to know the answer to before we actually get into the show proper. Mark, just how traumatized was your son by this?
But he wasn't. He wasn't traumatized at all. See, here's what we discovered about my son. He's not afraid of the Grinch, at least this cuddly iteration of it, okay? So, Illumination Studios is brought to you by Universal Studios. Did a great job of presenting a Grinch that was palatable for children of all ages. What my son...
Didn't they say that last week? Like, wasn't that actually one of my things? I said, well, maybe this fluffier version will be more palatable.
Probably, yes. Where my son draws a line, and he actually said this. He's like, because he made it through the movie just fine. He's behaved worse at other movies that he actually wanted to see. Now, that I can chalk some of that up to the fact that he's gotten older since The Good Dinosaur, and some of these other movies where even earlier this summer, where we went to go see The Incredibles, and I think he just got bored by the end of it. And if his mother's there, he'll get out of his chair. He'll want to sit on her lap. I think during the last Hotel Transylvania, which was again only like 2 or 3 months ago, he kept getting out of his seat and like sitting on the stairs or whatever. There's certain things that tickle his fancy, and other things where he's just like, eh. And some of it is just a matter of time. This was a really short movie, so it fit into. He didn't have enough time to be bored, but more importantly, he wasn't scared at all. And he did say, "Mommy and Daddy, I know what scares me now. I don't like it when the guy with the deep voice sings the song." He's talking about Boris Karloff. He doesn't like
Boris. In somewhat fairness to your son, Boris Karloff was professionally scaring people for decades.
Right. So it would make sense. So he doesn't like the Boris Karloff iteration of "You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch."
Does he think he's the one? Does he think he's the subject of the song or something?
I don't know.
There's this deep-voiced authoritarian man telling me I'm a mean one. I don't like it.
Well, what's funny about that? We were having a conversation recently, and we were kind of reminiscing about what a perfect baby my daughter was. My daughter, she cried when she was hungry, and she cried when she was wet, like any normal child. But for the most part, she's one of those babies that tricks you into having a second child because the first one was too easy. My wife actually referred to her as a potted plant for much of her infancy. Because she sat and she played and she cooed and she smiled and she laughed and she was a perfect baby. And then along came my son, who wouldn't smile and wouldn't laugh and only wanted to be fed and cried constantly, and we referred to him as the jerk baby. So we have perfect baby and jerk baby. And
I gotta mute myself. Keep going.
And so recently we brought the subject up again, and my son finally pushed the table. He's like, "I've had it. I don't want to be a jerk baby anymore." So it's entirely possible that he thinks he's the subject of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," considering we've now referred to him on several occasions as jerk baby. But at the end of the day, the point of this entire bit is that he did very well with the movie, and he liked this iteration just fine. He just doesn't want to hear the Boris Karloff song anymore.
Okay, so confirmed, calling your child the jerk baby will give them a complex if done consistently enough. Okay, good to know.
Yes, write that down.
All right, with that out of the way, in case anyone out there hasn't seen some iteration of this story, I'm going to go over what happens. This doesn't deviate a whole lot from the original, animated short from. Geez, how old is that thing?
What was it, the 60s?
1966, yeah. It was the original television thing. Okay. Doesn't deviate a whole lot from that, which itself is just a straight adaptation of the source material. We are introduced to the Grinch, who is a character. He's green, and he's
a hermit.
A malcontent. He lives alone with his dog, and not happy about a whole lot of things. We meet the Who's in Whoville, who are getting ready for Christmas, and this is their favorite time of the year, and everything is bright and happily colored, and people are going about their day and getting ready for it, and the Grinch is just, he hates Christmas profoundly, for reasons that they actually go into a little bit here. It has to do with his childhood. He was an orphan, and he was constantly neglected. He saw a lot of people with families. He never had one. He grew up to be bitter and resentful of this, and that contributed to him being the way he is. A major portion of the impetus for this comes from the fact that the Grinch is apparently an emotional eater. He wakes up one morning for breakfast, and there's nothing there. There's like a bean. And he laments to Max that, no, I could have sworn I bought enough food to get us through January. I was very specific about this. He goes through all of his stuff, and he can't find any food, and he then laments that he's been, how much emotional eating have I been doing over the last few weeks, and it turns out quite a bit. This means he has to go into town to restock his supplies, and he has to deal with the Christmas celebration and the Who's, and it's one of the funniest sequences in this entire movie is just his shopping trip. As he gets to town and he's like stalked by people singing, by a choir singing. That was one of the funnier things. Was just the fact that he can't get away from this like street choir singing singing Christmas carols. They're actively chasing him. He finally gets to the store and there's people, and he's like, "Nope, just want to get in and get out." And he does his somewhat dastardly things as he stocks up. He pays and leaves. As he's leaving, he runs into, pretty much literally, Cindy Lou Who is trying to get her letter to Santa off. They don't interact a whole lot more than that. They just runs into him with an inflatable tube, and his response to this is quite appropriately, if this had been an actual sled, you might have killed me, right? Think about what you're doing here. Then he did one of the few I laughed at most of the just jerky things that he did throughout this movie because they're funny. But when he kind of burned Santa in front of the 2-year-old, that was just that one was like, okay, you're butting up against the edge of being, a total jackass. But he doesn't quite go over it. He doesn't say Santa's not real. It's just something like, oh, that's right, no one's ever seen him.
Right.
And then he runs across the closest thing he has to a neighbor. Bricklebrack?
Sure.
Wasn't it? Bricklebomb. Who inadvertently informs him that this year in Whoville, Christmas will be 3 times larger. The Grinch is not happy about this. He doesn't like Christmas anyway. So the notion that this town celebration will be 3 times the size that it was before, he thinks he's being lied to initially. Turns out not so much. Everything's bigger, there's an enormous tree, everything's brighter, and he's not happy about any of this. He tries... They're celebrating this enormous tree that they had to helicopter in. Took 3 different helicopters because it's a huge tree. And he gets a catapult and tries to launch a giant snowball at it. This doesn't go well. In fact, he winds up being launched into the tree as they're celebrating, and this triggers some of his issues, being around all these happy people and the bright lights and the celebration. He just wanders back out of Whoville somewhat disoriented and going, I must stop this whole thing. This will not stand. I've had it. Had it up to here. I've stands all I can stands. I can't stands no more. And he begins his plot to steal Christmas. He develops a bunch of gadgets to help him out with this. He captures a very fat reindeer that he names Fred. He steals a sled that starts out as just a decoration from his neighbor. Winds up letting Fred go because it turns out Fred the reindeer has a family, and he's a malcontent and he's a bit of a jerk, but he's not going to be a total jackass about this. And, you've got a family, I can't keep you here, go on. The concurrent storyline, because rather than have Cindy Lou Who just show up as he's in her house, they give her kind of something to do. Her mom is a single mother. It's never stated how she got that way in the movie. It's written here that she's widowed, so I'll go with that. She works hard. She has Cindy Lou, who's, again, like 2-ish young, and then she has a couple of twins, and she's running herself ragged, trying to, do this. And Cindy Lou wants to ask Santa for something to make her mom happy, because But she decides that the best way to do this is to confront Santa face to face. Because a letter's not going to do it. She tries to go to the North Pole, but that's a 4-month journey, and that would take too long. So she contrives a trap for Santa in her house, and that's what she's doing the whole time, is getting that set up. While the Grinch prepares his nefarious plot, he plans this out rather meticulously. He's like, okay, I need to do 7 houses an hour in order to get through all of this. He figures it out, he plans it out. I think part of why I like elements of this so much is they treat this portion like a heist movie. He actually has to get his gear together and plan it out, and it's not just willy-nilly. The Grinch goes on his thieving rampage. He steals Christmas. He does get caught in Cindy Lou's trap, but he's dressed as Santa, and she thinks he's Santa. And some of what she says to him about just wanting her mom to be happy, there's been a bunch of stuff throughout this movie that kind of gets to him a little bit. After he's stolen everything, we get the normal climactic scene. He gets up to the top of the mountain. He's ready to just dump all of Christmas off the top of this cliff. And he hears the Who's singing anyway. And he hears them singing. He thinks about this. He decides to open himself up to it and is overcome with the spirit of Christmas, wants to be a better person, brings back all of the decorations, all of the presents and everything. This is one of the deviations from the film, from the original, that I actually enjoyed, is he comes back, drops it off, and just says, "Yeah, I did it. I'm sorry." It's a short speech, but it's really quite good. Something bad happened to me a long time ago in the past. I thought stealing all of your stuff would make it better, but it doesn't. You can't actually make the past better. I'm sorry. And he leaves. Then Cindy Lou shows up at his door a few hours later to invite him to Christmas dinner with her family. He is confused by this, but goes anyway. Reconnects with a few people, becomes more of a part of the community, and we get the traditional Grinch ending with him carving the roast beast. Okay. I think that's everything. Mark, did I leave anything out? This is a really short. It's like 90. It's less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's. I think it's about 80 some odd minutes long. It's less than an hour and a half. I'm of two minds. First of all, I'm like everybody else. And a lot of the critics are the same thing. It is enjoyable pep. The kids enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it. I laughed at parts. They were definitely. I laughed at the carolers chasing him. I laughed at a lot of the. What do you call it? Oh Jesus! What's the phrase that we use for this sort of thing? Jesus, the slap happy humor.
Slapstick.
Thank you. Slap. I laughed at a lot of the slapstick humor. I mean, this bit where they're doing the trap and the kid gets his clothes ripped off.
Can I still eat the cookie?
Yeah, and he's standing there.
And you're the only one who can eat that cookie now, buddy.
Yeah, and he's standing there, holding the cookie over his penis and all of that. I laughed my ass off, literally, when not literally, but I laughed my ass off when the dog comes up the elevator, and and he's met with the Grinch in tights. It just says "Go time."
Oh yeah, genius starts with the abs.
Yeah, I laughed at all that stuff. One of the things I liked about the movie is, and I judge my Grinch movies by how the Grinch interacts with the dog. If the Grinch is not abusive to the dog, I tend to enjoy it more. When he's a shit to the dog the entire time, and then suddenly he's like found redemption. What did the dog get out of this? I like the fact that that he's good to that despite it all, he's pretty good to the dog through most of this. And then at the end of it, he gets Max a present. He has a great line. He's like, "That's gonna get old real quick."
He gives the dog a squeaky toy.
Right.
And he's clearly enjoying this moment of the dog being happy and playing with his toy, and it's just but the squeaker's going off and going off and going off, and he's just smiling. But that's gonna get old.
So there's a phrase that gets used in reviews that I don't particularly like, but it's a big part of what I need to say, and it's a big part of what a lot of people have said about this movie is that, was this really necessary? And here's my take on whether the necessity of the film. On the one hand, if Universal and Illumination own the copyright to Dr. Seuss, and like any IP, they have to do something with it every couple of years, or they lose it. Like with Sony with Spider-Man, for example. So the necessity of making the movie is they have to do something with it, and a lot of what they've done with Dr. Seuss has not done well. Like the Lorax didn't do great. Some of the live action stuff didn't do great. Some of it did better than others. A lot of people have been comparing this film to the Jim Carrey iteration, which was live action.
Terrible.
Some people are saying the live action one was better. So
that is just needlessly being a contrarian. There is absolutely no empirical way that the live action one of the live action Grinch starring Jim Carrey was better than this. Absolutely none.
Oh, it was definitely better than the live action Cat in the Hat.
Look, we don't even talk about that, all right?
So my point is, if you're sitting there at Universal and Illumination and you're like, okay, we have to do something with the Dr. Seuss IP. Like, well, what always makes money. What always makes money, and is a good holiday tradition, and it won't lose money, especially if we keep it cheap. We'll do another Grinch. Okay. So there's your necessity piece of it. Is it artistically necessary? Well, no, but most of what we see in Hollywood isn't. Venom wasn't artistically necessary, but it's raking in the dough.
It's not raking in the dough, but it's doing quite well.
It's in the top 10. It's raking in the dough. So with that said...
I mean, most art isn't artistically necessary if we want to get abstract with the phraseology.
Well, that's my point. So let's turn the page on the necessity of art and go, okay, if you're going to do it, right, do it well. Do something different with it. Or you might as well just re-release the the 60s one, maybe freshen up the art or something. I don't know. But
just give it another. I mean, quite frankly, they should just play it on broadcast television every year about this time of year because it's that good. But
I don't know if it would satisfy doing something with the IP. Is my point.
Oh no, it wouldn't. But again, I'm prepared to accept your premise that we just have to do something with this, and that is perfectly acceptable. I'm just saying that if you want to do something with the original, you just play it on television once a year.
All right. So here's where I'm going with this. If you're sitting around and you're like, what can we do with the Grinch that freshens it up, but isn't so outside the box that it drives people from the theater? That's the opposite of what we want. And it gives us the ability...
Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey.
And we want to do something, to freshen up the IP and, and obviously make money with this. When I initially saw the promotional material for this, it's not the adult Grinch that you get for 99.9% of this movie. It's the little guy, okay? It's little Grinch, little boy Grinch. And I thought, oh, that's a neat concept. Let's see, they're going to do a Grinch origin story. Which isn't what we got. We got the Grinch who stole Christmas. And the one thing that really separates it from the original story is you at least get a flashback to tell you, how he got to be the way he was. Here's the problem. They don't do anything with the flashback. I mean, I've gotten into a few debates, including one with my wife, and I said, I wish they had used that time. Give me 5 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. No, you don't need more than that. But 5 to 10 minutes of this kid's life in the orphanage. Not just that one shot of him hallucinating Christmas with a family that suddenly disappears. And my wife's like, nobody wants to see that. Like, okay. I clearly am someone who wanted to see it. I think there are people out there who would make the argument that that would be a fresh take on this, would be an interesting take. It would be, it would present a psychological element to it. And then I remembered who I was in the theater with, which is mostly...
Yeah. I was waiting for you to get to that point, because you're sounding like me.
And
Normally
then,
that's my thing. Like, they could have expounded on this a little bit. They could have made this deeper and richer, but then the kids would stop looking at the jingling keys.
Right. My son would have set the theater on fire. Okay? 5 to 10 minutes of, of the Grinch, the Grinch turning into Oliver Twist. My son's like, that's it, I'm out of here. And he'd have, he'd have walked into another movie. So with that being said, I can see where a lot of the critics are coming from, and I think my personal experience with the movie is, why'd you bother? If you weren't going to do anything with it that makes this really interesting, this was sort of an exercise in masturbation. On the other hand, the object here isn't to make art or to do anything interesting with it or to have a fresh take on the movie. The idea is to make money. And money is what they made. So, is it great? No. It's not a great film. It's funny, it's entertaining, it's colorful, it didn't scare the shit out of my son, which is a plus. But it's just there. It's one of those where, you throw it on for the kids to distract them for an hour while you put towels away. That's the weight of the movie.
That sounds about right. I mean, objectively, I don't really have anything to add. I think you're essentially exactly correct. Personally, you joked about me being the Grinch. And in fairness, that's not the most inaccurate comparison.
I was going to say, I think it's dead on, but go on.
It's not dead on. It's not dead on. I'm not an orphan. I don't hate Christmas.
You're a mean one, Robert Winfrey. You really are a heel.
Keep going. I want to see if you know the song.
Something about a cactus.
You got nothing. All right.
Damn it. No, fuck you. Now I'm going to go get the lyrics.
No, it doesn't count if you have to read it. I wanted to see if you knew it.
No, not after you really are a heel.
Hang on. The point being, I liked that you mentioned they don't do a whole lot with it, and that's true. They did enough to stretch out a, 12-minute animated video from the 60s into 80 minutes and change.
You're as cuddly as a cactus. Ha! You're as charming as Neil. Mr. Winfrey. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Winfrey. Your heart's empty hole. Your brain's full of spiders. Your garlic is soul, Mr. Winfrey. I wouldn't touch you. 39.5 foot pole. Can
I just say that one of my few criticisms of this movie, the pop remix of the song that they had, I wasn't feeling at all.
I'll tell you that unnerved my son for just a moment because here's him say you're a mean one, so that's it. And we both, but there's enough differentiation that he was like, oh wait a minute, this isn't what I think it is. Never mind. I could see him tense up.
Yeah, I was not feeling that. But
yeah, neither was I. I thought it was it had a very odd rhythm to it.
It was so weird. But the point being that I do absolutely, on an emotional level, identify with the guy who just, like, has his dog, lives alone, doesn't want to be bothered, isn't really happy when he has to be social with other people. I mean, there's that one, like, I've never empathized more with an animated character than him at the S movie when he's at doorstep, thinking about pushing doorbell. You know, this is a terrible idea. Why should I do this? Nothing good can come of this. Why in the world would I enter this? This is the worst thing ever. Me, that's me outside every door before I knock on it. Like, this is the worst. This is a terrible idea. Why does anyone do this to themselves? That might as well have been, like, my inner monologue anytime I have to interact with people. Just... Yeah, again, I don't really what you would... I don't know what all the complaints about this movie would be other than... like, the ones like, why do we need this? Like, okay, do we need this? No. That said, we've got it, so how about we just judge it on those merits? I mean, it's funny when it's funny, it's sentimental when it's sentimental, and it's effective in both of those realms.
I actually really liked what he says at the end. He's like, you know, as it turns out, it's not that I hated Christmas, it's that I hated being alone. Which is which is definitely something I sympathized with.
Oh yeah, I get that one. Again, there's serious portions of this movie that's like, oh, the Grinch is just kind of, you know, a person with, you know, various issues of social interaction. Yeah, he just doesn't get how to interact with people. And then sure, he does some jerky things. I mean, I think my favorite one is still when he picks that thing of, like, sugar plum juice or whatever off the top shelf when the woman's trying to get it.
Right.
Looks at it. She goes, oh, are you getting that? He goes, no, and puts it back on the top shelf.
So you're mean. He just knocks it over.
Then she, oh, well, you're mean. And then after she says that, he just kind of jostles the shelf so it falls onto the floor and breaks.
Right, right.
Let me say this, because again, this is one of those things that they kind of invented out of whole cloth because we have to get more time for this movie. I liked him in the Caribou, because he has the fat reindeer, Fred.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. When you're done with this, there is something else I wanted to talk about.
Okay. And because he wants the reindeer to pull the sleigh, because this large, again, it's kind of a fat reindeer, but it's burly. This is clearly the most an effective means of transporting the sleigh. And if anyone happens to look out, they'll see a reindeer pulling a sleigh. Like, you expect this on Christmas. And then when he sees that the reindeer has, again, a wife and a kid, when they're out test driving the sleigh, they stumble across them, and he actually says, no, I already have a reindeer. I don't need more. Not accepting applications. And the little one just kind of hops up, and, like, you know, Fred gets kind of happy to see them, and he just kind of sighs and goes, yeah, I can't do this. All right, go on. I mean, they do a really good job of writing the appropriate line with this guy of, no, occasionally he's a jerk and he's got a really, you know, quasi-malicious sense of humor. But he still knows right from wrong. He still has a heart. It's just, you know, small. But it's still there. It can still be pushed. And I mean, I think you're right when you say that, you know, how does he interact with the dog? Because he's good to the dog. He gets mad at him for drumming once and then immediately goes and apologizes. Like, I'm sorry. You're a good dog. You're a lousy drummer, but you're a good dog. So, because, I mean, in the original, it's like, why is the dog with the Grinch?
Right.
Like, why is the dog still there? Here, it's very clear the dog gets him. And where most people don't.
Well, yeah, more than that, why would you root for this guy who's abusive to the dog?
Yeah,
like,
you can't be that big of a jackass to animals and expect there to be any sort of sympathy.
Right. Like, oh, you're redeemed, yes, but you've been abusive to the dog this entire time. Like, it doesn't even out. I wanted to talk about this again. This is another... I'm going to make it sound like my wife and I had this deep, long philosophical conversation. It wasn't really a very long conversation at all, but I mentioned that I really thought where they were going with the Cindy Lou Who thing was, what I want from Santa is bring back my dad. And if not bring back my dad, then I wasn't quite sure. I mean, here's the thing. They really tiptoed around the whole, idea of somebody else being in this woman's life to make her happy. And because they couldn't, because they can't say bring back my dad, because then it's a very social justice warriors limited moment where they clearly were going with that, and then somebody pulled it out and said, how about we just say, I just want my mom to be happy. It's kind of weak. It's not kind of, it's very weak. After you've built it up the way that they did. They were clearly going in one direction, and then it just feels like right at the end, they ran away from it as fast as humanly possible. Because, and my wife brought up this point. They were like, you can't say that a single woman needs help. They do. And every single woman I know talks about it incessantly. How much, all they just want sleep, and they need help, and they wish that, none of the single women I know are happy that their marriages broke up, or that they're raising kids by themselves, or whatever the situation is. They're all, wanting that second person there, if for no other reason than to have an extra set of hands.
I mean, yeah, just split the workload. My parents divorced when I was about 16, and my mom, who can do anything, went back and got her master's degree when she was over 40, or around 40. And that took a lot of time, and it took a lot of effort, and she had a lot of help. I mean, I don't think it would have been possible if her parents hadn't moved about 20 minutes south of us.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit before she really went back to school, and her sister was around, and, I and my immediately younger brother were old enough teenagers to help. Like, there's a lot that goes into that.
Right.
The notion that you can't say they need help is, I feel like it's a societal lie we're telling ourselves because the divorce rates are so high in this country.
Well, that's the thing.
That if we actually looked at the reality of what it is to be a single parent, we'd feel terrible about it, and we should. So to make ourselves feel better, we just kind of obfuscate the fact that, no, it's a suboptimal way to be.
Right, but if you say that you're putting women down, you're putting, the lie that's being told is that a single woman can work and raise children and everything is perfect, and it's just not true. And in real life, every single woman would admit to that. On the other, that they may be doing okay, but they're not living the best life they can live. But the problem is, like I said, you're up against a media machine that perpetuates the lie. And I feel like in order to perpetuate the lie, they ruined a part of the movie that that could have been really powerful.
I also wonder if part of the thing wasn't just you can't say that about single women, but if you have Cindy Lou say, I want my dad back, how do you actually address that? Like, what's the closure? And more importantly, because I know what the closure actually is, can you actually do that in this movie?
Well, that's the thing.
In the movie designed the way this one is designed.
Well, I'll go a step further. If you say, I want my dad back, you've now alienated potentially, and I'm not saying this is like my belief, but there is an argument that will be made that you should not alienate gay couples. Why does she have to have a dad? Why can't she have two moms?
Ugh.
And so,
which is even dumber.
I can almost guarantee you
that's a profoundly stupid argument, but but you are correct that would be some of the backlash, I'm sure.
So I can tell you how the writers' room went. I'm sure the original line was, "I want my dad back," which would be a natural thing for a kid to wish for. And somebody said in the room, "You can't do that. You're going to alienate people. You're going to upset people. It's just a stupid Christmas movie. You got to think general." and they scratched the line out, and they said, you know, I just want someone. They're trying to.
The next iteration of that was probably I just want someone to help. I just want someone to help my mom, and then
and then they had to cut that line. You know, they're just like, because like why does she need somebody? She's a single woman. Hashtag me too. It's
strong,
2018.
independent woman who don't need no man.
Right, and it's like, and then I can guarantee you, there's a writer in there that just says, "Fuck it, I just want my mom to be happy." You know, and you know, my wife's argument with all of that was. She was like, I identified with the mom. Granted, she's married and I'm helpful, but somehow or other she identified with the mom still.
You can still identify with the character even if you're not in that exact situation. Again, I identify with the Grinch. I don't live alone. I'm not an orphan, and and my body is not covered with green hair. I'm not a mechanical genius.
I beg to differ on at least some of that. But listen,
everything I just said is empirically provable.
I am not convinced about the green hair. Now listen to me.
You've seen pictures of me. I am not covered in green hair.
Not in the pictures you sent.
Yes, I shaved myself just for the hell.
Anyway, I get that she's perfectly fine to identify with all of that, you know, and just feel like and this is something she talks about frequently. She's like, there's an expectation on mothers to be all things.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're married and everything, it's, you know, because there's competition among women too, to out mom and out wife each other. And it's exhausting, and a lot of them are unhappy doing it. Like, they don't want to.
I mean, it's almost like we shouldn't compete with each other over things that aren't comparable in a one-to-one scenario. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, your marriage is different than my marriage. Wow, who'd have thought?
So with all of that being said, I really felt like that was it was one of those glaringly weak parts. You know, like I talked about Smallfoot a few weeks ago. We didn't review it on Damn You Hollywood. On Damn You Hollywood. I'm actually trying to get away from doing a lot of the animated stuff with you. Just, you know, like,
it's not just with me. In fairness, hang on. Let's be clear. That's not just me. Like, that's just the quality of the animated movies. Like, what are we going to say?
Right. After a while, I'm pretty sure people are getting tired of us reviewing Pixar films going, yeah, it was perfect. Next.
I mean, we'll have Toy Story 4 next year, which we'll see what happens.
The whole review will be us being angry they didn't just end it with 3, but anyway.
Yes. Not all of it, but a significant portion. I mean, you have like the 3 most perfect movies and the most perfect movie trilogy. Why aren't you going back to it? And then, of course, I answer my question.
Money. Dun-dun-dun, and everyone's got a price for the $1 Million Mouse. Money. Anyway.
Dude, that mouse is worth, like, billion. Like, that's the $1 billion mouse.
Do you realize that in the same year they took a bath on Solo, they also made back the $4 billion they paid for Lucasfilm?
Yeah.
That tells you something right there. Anyway. So I just felt like that was the weakest part of the film. I was talking about... I brought up Smallfoot.
There was something there that could have been developed more and wasn't.
Yeah, I brought up Smallfoot. And, you know, I kept saying... I was talking about how there was clearly... They were clearly speaking to an agenda that exists, and that... And this is what upsets me, okay? Let me organize my thoughts here. The movie didn't have necessarily a political agenda. It existed for the sole purpose of being entertaining and being a thing for the holidays. But because the agenda is out there, it impeded the writing of this movie, and it made it weaker. That's upsetting to me. Is it as bad as what my wife perceived to be straight-up liberal propaganda that was Smallfoot? No. I don't think people... And none of that I hear Keenan Ivory Wayans yelling out message.
No, I mean... I almost feel like because some of what they were saying was so because part of it is just like it runs deliberately counter to elements of that, culture. Again, the fact that the Grinch says at the end, something bad happened to me. I thought stealing this stuff from you would help. It didn't. Which is just, again, it's a specific slap in the face. The whole reparation movement that took place in the 90s. My great-great-grandfather owned your great-great-great-grandfather. Here's a bunch of money. This somehow fixed it. No. It's a bit of a shot at socialism. I thought stealing all this stuff from you guys would make me feel better. No, it didn't. Turns out, community and friendship makes you feel better. And opening yourself up to giving and receiving charity. Not just blindly stealing from people who have stuff. Who'd have thought?
So
there's only so much of that you can sneak in before everyone who's just politically inclined that way starts throwing a screaming hissy fit about it.
Yeah. So with all of that said, I think we've said all that needs to be said about this. What say you?
Closing thoughts. Yeah, I dug it. Again, it's not perfect, but I enjoyed the majority of it. It's one of the better visual representations of the world of Dr. Seuss that I've seen. It's zany enough, but it's not stupidly zany. Again, we defy the laws of physics here, but we don't flaunt that we're defying them. So I was down again. I liked that. Just the last thing, to your point about I just want my mom to have some help around the house. The fact that during the closing credits, the Grinch actually makes something that is designed to help her.
Well, even before that, one of the first things he does in the house is take things out of her hands and put them on the table.
Yeah.
Cindy Lou got her Christmas wish. But it has to be done in the most subtle,
the blandest way possible.
Yeah. Most inoffensive way they could possibly do it on screen. I feel bad for the writers of this film. I mean, they got their money. It's not like they're hurting or whatever, but just to have to be in the room and get these notes back and be why, I understand I'm working for Illumination, but for fuck's sake, I'm sure they're looking at the guys writing Despicable Me and Minions and going, how I long to be you.
You guys can write basically whatever you want.
Yeah, how I long to write a 2-hour movie about fart jokes.
To be fair, none of them are just about them. They just feature them.
All right, with that said, here come the money. Nope, wrong one. I'm an idiot.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Alrighty. With a budget of $75 million, as of this recording, Dr. Seuss's The Grinch, brought to you by the good people at Illumination Studios, has made a total of $91 million. It was obviously number one for the weekend. The weekend numbers broke down this way. Dr. Seuss took the number one spot. Knocked Bohemian Rhapsody out of the number one spot, which is now at number 2. Overlord debuted at number 3, which, if you haven't seen Overlord, according to Mike Stokasa of the Red Letter Media fame, it's his favorite movie ever now. Apparently Overlord was really good. Nutcracker in the Four Realms.
But we can't review zombie horror movies here because Mark doesn't like them.
We had to review The Grinch.
I'm just saying. We could review that instead of Robin Hood. It would be real easy.
Hey, next year I was going to throw Child's Play on the the reboot of Child's Play on the schedule, but it's the same weekend as Toy Story. See? Yeah. It's not my fault we can't review horror movies.
Look, hang on. I actually don't really care for the Child's Play franchise, but...
Oh, I do. I find it hilarious. That's one of the few horror franchises that I'll actually watch.
That's because you watch it as a comedy. Like, you probably can't stand the original 2 because they're actually serious. After that, it just gets stupid. Like, hey, Bride of Chucky, there's a sex scene involving the child's dolls. I mean, how do you not laugh at that?
Giggity. Overlord debuted at number 3. Nutcracker in the Four Realms. How do you feel? Like, if you're Disney Studios, right, other than, like, a remake of a princess movie, you can't get shit right. You know, Nutcracker in the Four Realms, A Wrinkle in Time, what was it? Tomorrowland. One bomb after another. They must sit around and when they look at the numbers and everything, go like, thank God we own Marvel and Lucasfilm and Pixar.
Yeah, some of these things, man, they're just, I mean, in fairness, there's a bunch that they're doing that work out quite well for them. I mean, even beyond the big ones, they do pretty solidly on a bunch of stuff. But man, when they miss, like, there's not a lot of just midland Disney
I was going to say it's either a home run or they hit the umpire with the bat. It's that
either
bad.
a home run or the batter turns around and slugs the ump. Like,
A Star Is Born fell from 4 to 5. The new Dragon Tattoo Story Girl debuted at number 6. Nobody's Fool fell from 3 to 7. Venom 6 to 8. Halloween 5 to 9. The Hate You Give stayed for its 6th week at number 10, I guess. Smallfoot 7 to 11. Beautiful Boy 13 to 12. Can You Ever Forgive Me moved up from 16 to 13, but I think that's because it opened in a bunch of new theaters. I'm trying to get to the theater to see Can You Ever Forgive Me, and I'm not having a good time of it.
not even aware that was a thing.
Thugs of Hindustan debuted at number 14. Night School dropped from 12 to 15. First Man 11 to 16. Goosebumps 8 to 17. Boy Erased moved up from 25 to 18. Free Solo, not the solo you think it is, 18 to 19. And finally, Hunter Killer fell from 9 to 20. And that was the weekend. Well, we have some movement for the yearly movies. Of course, not for the top 4. That's not happening anytime soon.
Nothing's touching those.
But Venom is climbing the charts, man. It was like number 11, I think, the last time we did one of these. It's now number 7. It has gone past Ant-Man and the Wasp. It is just behind Deadpool. So yeah, the first.
That movie's success baffles me. It genuinely does.
So.
I mean, I imagine it just has to come down to there are people who find that movie fun.
Yeah.
And they just have fun watching that, and I don't get it. But I'm not accusing anyone of, lying about that. I don't get it.
Apparently it had a huge debut in China.
After it got by all the censors, I'm sure.
So, of course, the first 5, no movement there. Avengers, Black Panther, Jurassic World, Incredibles, Mission Impossible, then Deadpool, then Venom, then Ant-Man and the Wasp, then Ready Player One, and number 10 is your Chinese Chinaman movie, Operation Red Sea. The Meg is hanging out at number 12. So, yeah, Sony, for for the longest time I kept saying Sony's number 1 movie this year was Hotel Transylvania 3. I can't say that anymore. It's now Venom, and it's in the top 10.
Yeah, they managed to sneak... the sequel's going to bomb.
I don't know. People are hungry for maximum carnage. And so here's the thing. I don't think it'll be good. But neither was Venom, and look what's happening. I think
it's going to be worse. I think their take on maximum carnage will be worse than this appreciably.
But again, you're talking about whether it's
I think it will be so bad
worse.
it will actually affect its box office performance.
I 100% disagree with you. I think the next
you
one...
are probably correct, but I'm going to stand by my prediction.
I think the next one makes $1 billion because I think people are that hungry for it and have that little discernible taste. So,
we're gonna get Carnage without any actual blood on screen. Like you all do realize this, right?
It'll be interesting to see if now that Venom is successful. I mean, the word on the street was that if Venom was successful, that eventually, once the deal with Marvel ran out, that Tom Holland's Peter Parker would disappear from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Sony would be able to put Spider-Man back in his own universe, the Sony Spider-Man universe. So we'll see. More Venom
likely is that like Sony gets bought out between now and then because they've had one admittedly large success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say.
Although I will also say it would not shock me all that much if they retired Peter Parker for that purpose, introduced Miles Morales.
Well, they have
into
the Spider-Verse.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then we went back to another terrible Spider-Man in the Sony universe that immediately makes everyone go, "Why? Oh, why are we doing this?"
You know, it's funny you say that. Here's what's going to end up happening after Avengers.
This whole thing's fallen apart not too long after Avengers 4. Like, I just feel like as a whole, like as the MCU as a whole is a resilient being, but we're approaching a really important crossroads with, again, the entire endeavor.
Right.
That's going to come about once Iron Man retires, Cap dies, and Thor basically, like, when we get to whatever Phase 4 is, and we wind up having to introduce a bunch of new characters and have them all interact, how many people are we going to retain and how many are we going to lose in that process?
Well, here's what I was going to suggest, that with the advent of time travel that they'll bring into the next one, I think the entire universe, the very fabric of the universe changes such that Peter Holland's Spider-Man will no longer exist, and he'll be replaced with Spider-Gwen. And they'll do that going forward.
I'd rather they did Miles than Spider-Gwen. Much rather.
The problem is Sony's laid claim to him already in the Into the Spider-Verse movie, where he's the central character.
Spider-Gwen's in that too.
Yeah, but not the central character. The central character is Miles Morales. They're building a lot of their Sony Spider-Man universe around Miles Morales now. All right.
I just don't think they'll give up Spider-Gwen that easily either. Like, whatever version of Spider-Man we... I'm going to piss off some Spider-Man fans here. I hope we get Ben Reilly. I hope we get the Scarlet Spider.
There you go. Next week is fantastic.
Hey, look, if I can't sneak into One More Day reference, I'll do a Scarlet Spider reference just because I can.
Terrific. Next week is Fantastic Beasts, just not getting good reviews, by the way. Apparently, people are not enjoying it. Everything else, Instant Family.
We'll be here to tell you if they're right or wrong.
The other one is Instant Family, which is the new Mark Wahlberg, Maudlin movie about him adopting children. And Widows, which is a crime movie with black women. In any case, how that relates to whether or not how good The Grinch does, I mean... it's a holiday movie. People want to go to the movies to see Christmas stuff, and over the next few weeks, there's not a lot of Christmas stuff to be had. I mean, the week after that is Creed 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Robin Hood.
All of which will suck.
And the week after that is The Possession of Hannah, which is a horror movie. You have a re-released Deadpool, Once Upon a Deadpool, which I believe is...
Their PG-13 edit of Deadpool.
Yeah. Then you have Mortal Engines.
I mean, they're going to make money on that because it's all gravy. All they did was edit it, but it's going to be the dumbest thing ever.
And there's Mortal Engines, The Mule, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So there's no other Christmas movies. Like, everything, it may be released around Christmas, but not Christmas related. So, people want to go see something Christmas related. They're going to go see The Grinch. So I would imagine
this thing will probably be in theaters up until Christmas.
Yeah, I would imagine it probably sells in around $200 to $300 million when it's all said and done.
Yeah, this thing will be fine financially.
So with that said, let's move on to the final portion of our show. I have a question for you, sir.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Dan Murrell of Screen Junkies, who likes the smell of his own farts, says, I think you can make kids' entertainment that is entertaining to more than just the 6 and under crowd. Ha ha ha.
I mean, yeah, it can be done, but does it all... I would argue this is entertaining to more than the 6 and under crowd. Again, I was entertained by it.
I was entertained by it. My wife was entertained by it. The whole theater was entertained by it, and there were adults in there with their children.
Don't get me wrong. This isn't exactly highbrow material, but that doesn't mean it's not entertaining to it. There's stuff in there for adults that, kids can laugh at and adults can laugh at. That's a success. That doesn't mean you're necessarily only appealing to the lowest common denominator. This isn't My Little Pony.
Speaking of My Little Pony, have you seen this asshole, Andre Meadows of Black Nerd Comedy? You know who this guy is?
I do not know who this gentleman is, and I now regret you bringing him to my attention.
I'm glad they tried to make this feel like a true Seuss story, rather than something too irreverent. He spelled 2 T-O, by the way. I just feel like it didn't have to be this soft. It could have been a bit edgier. They should have made it
You
Poochie.
want a Dr. Seuss adaptation to be edgier.
I'm telling you,
no.
When Dr. Seuss isn't on the screen, everyone should be asking, "Where's the?" I fucked that joke up. Take 2. When the Grinch isn't on the screen, everyone should be asking, "Where's the Grinch?"
This guy is probably the same one who thought that the Peanuts movie needed updating.
I'm sure. Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com.
You self-employed jackass.
They have once again taken a story that is perfect as a half-an-hour tale and padded it to make it longer than it should be.
See, I'm not sure I agree with that in this instance. Again, that is the big crux of trying to adapt any of Seuss's material into a movie, is they're short. These are short, visually engaging stories designed for children. And I don't mean that as a negative. Mind you, Dr. Seuss's material actually teaches children important life lessons and values. But padding that out is a difficult thing. In this instance, I think they succeeded. There's not, it's a short movie, but there's not a lot of fat. And considering how much they had to extend the material they were given, I'd say that's a success on their end.
Matthew Passantino of Big Picture, Big Sound. There's enough silliness and pratfalls for the movie to work as a family outing, but in the end, The Grinch doesn't really justify its own existence. See? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, these morons with that bit of logic. I mean, what exactly qualifies as justifying its existence? Guess what? It's going to make money. There, it justified its existence.
So you know how I just went through the calendar? There isn't another single Christmas movie to be had? You know how I just pointed that out?
Yeah.
Brandy McDonnell of The Oklahoman. It just feels like more cute but disposable holiday junk to clutter this increasingly overstuffed season. There are no other Christmas movies this season.
I mean, unless your complaint is about the season in general being kind of overstuffed in a nebulous, existential way almost. In which case, who cares? It's a movie. It actually doesn't support your point. Again, there's literally not another Christmas-themed movie all year. Unless you want to loosely count Nutcracker in the Four Realms. But no one saw it, so no one cares.
Yeah. Keith Watson of Slant Magazine. The film's vision of Christmas is so insipid and lifeless. It's hard to see why the Grinch would even bother to steal it. Wow.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
I don't know what was insipid
not only
about
do I
it.
disagree with your assertion, I'm not sure it's... I can disagree with assertions that are still defensible and somewhat true. I'm not sure that's an accurate... No. Again, based on all available evidence, that's not a fair conclusion. Like, what would you consider not to be an insipid version of Christmas if, the Who's standing around singing after having all of the trappings stolen from them doesn't qualify? What does?
I think this is a person who also just doesn't like the Christmas season. So any iteration of it would be insipid.
Probably.
I think his vision of Christmas is everyone standing around vaping in winter coats.
Bear in mind, vaping in winter coats in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So they don't actually need the winter coats.
I'm starting to hate this person a lot. This next reviewer.
This guy.
Rashid Irani of the Hindustan of the Hindustan Times. This is the guy who, like, a year or so ago did the bit with how Trumpy a movie was, it wasn't even like the Trumpiness. It was like he did a review of a movie that neither you or I could make any sense out of. It's like, wait, what?
I remember that. Like, my only thought was, okay, was this just badly translated from? Did they just Google Translate instead of actually translate? Because otherwise, these sentences aren't actually sentences.
Right. Yeah, this idiot. The film, despite the star cast and even a cameo by the legendary Angela Lansbury, is uniformly unimpressive.
Okay, first of all, there's not a star cast here. There's like Benedict Cumberbatch, and that's it.
He's referring to Kenan Thompson.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no, there's not a star cast. I mean, and I don't think it's unimpressive. If you want to say it's not exceptional, I'd agree with that. This is not an exceptional film. But I wouldn't actually go into the further negative assertion.
I'm going to read these next two back to back. This is Kirk Baird of Toledo Blade and Matthew DeKinder of Suburban Journals of St. Louis. This animated big screen version is 3 times too long and 10 times as unnecessary. The Grinch isn't a travesty, but it is completely and totally unnecessary.
Ugh. Yeah, so unnecessary. Tell that to the people who were employed by it. I don't know if we need this movie. Oh no, we're only going to pay writers, animators, actors, producers, directors. We're only going to make money off of it. No, let's just, not have these people work. Piss off.
Roger Moore of Movie Nation, Robert Winfrey's spiritual father.
I hate this guy.
Pretty. And pretty heartless.
Oh, shut up. Okay, maybe again, like the fact that I am 31 1/3% dead inside. I think it went up a little bit. The fact that I'm mostly dead inside, not even mostly, but I'm significantly dead inside. I'm kind of a robot. Mark's made jokes about this. And there's still parts of this movie that kind of poked me in the feels. Like, no, there's definitely heart in this movie. In fact, if anything, it's a bit... It leans towards the schmaltzy. It doesn't go there, but that's the side of things it leans towards, rather than the heartless.
James Berardinelli, top critic. There is no aspect in which the 2018 version seems like anything but a hapless, bloated imitation. It's not bloated. It's like less than 90 minutes long.
I mean, it's only bloated if you consider the 22-minute original to be perfect. And don't get me wrong, I love the original, and I don't... again, like, if we're questioning the artistic necessity of this, if you could watch this or the original, sure, watch the original. I mean, I'm not going to argue that point. But this is not a bloated movie. Like, if you take this movie on its own merits, it's really lean.
Yeah.
If anything, it could have used some fattening.
Tim Grierson of Screen International. Universal's animated full-length adaptation of the beloved Dr. Seuss's children's book lacks the magic, heart, and humor that have made this Yuletide tale such a perennial favorite. Yeah, I don't remember the first one being that funny.
It's not. The first one's not a comedy. I don't know why people think it is. There's nothing all that comedic about the original about the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I'm going to read these next two back to back because I'm pretty sure they used the word that they used in this was on their Word of the Day calendar. Redhayan Simon Pillai of Now Toronto and Rob Vaux of Sci-Fi Movie Page. The new pleasantly animated Grinch from the company that brought you The Minions is a quaint, frictionless bauble. And the bauble is shiny but hollow inside. Bauble.
Yes, very clearly we just got to be in the dictionary here. Good job, you guys. I mean, again, there's a improper correlation in arguments going on here between that which is predictable and that which is hollow. I mean, yeah, the Grinch's heart grows by the end of this, and he becomes part of the Who society. That doesn't mean there's not emotion there. It just means you know what it is and you know that it's coming. There's a significant difference between it not existing and you being able to see it.
Matthew Razik of Flixus.com. Its heart is 2 sizes too small.
You proud of that? I mean, that's not even original. You literally ripped off a piece of written material that's probably older than you are. Good job.
Oh, it gets worse.
I'm sure.
Christian Toto of HollywoodInToto.com. A kindler, gentler Grinch. What's next? Oscar, the somewhat surly but pretty agreeable Grouch? Ha ha ha!
I'm sorry. At what point is the Grinch... I mean, he went from being and again, I really do love the original. I mean, I want to be very clear about this, but there are no actual characters in the original, or they're caricatures. The Grinch isn't a character in the original, he's just a guy who hates Christmas and then has his heart opened by its power. He actually has to be a character in something that takes longer than 20 minutes. So they gave him a character. They fleshed him out. I'm sorry if you think that because he's not just kicking his dog all over the place, he's kinder and cuddlier. I mean, sure, he's animated to be fuzzier and therefore a bit less menacing, but that's an animation style choice that Illumination does with everything.
Dave Calhoun of Time Out, top critic.
Top. Air quotes.
The film is mainly a series of slapstick episodes, not always neatly hung together, and with barely any memorable side characters. Even the Grinch himself fails to make a massive impact at times.
It's not just a series of slapstick gags. Again, there's plenty of other stuff here. And why do you want a memorable side character? Like, you have the Grinch, you have Cindy Lou, you have the dog.
Again,
This is a simple story.
The
Why
dog,
are we gonna...
The dog should have been voiced by...
No.
But the dog should have been voiced by... Oh, gosh, what's the comedian's name? The short comedian that you hate? That's with The Rock?
No.
No, just tell me his name.
I'm not going to tell you his name.
I'm not moving on until I figure this out.
It's your show, man. You want to stall out for dead air? Will you try to remember that guy's name?
Hang on. I'm having such a...
Are you just going to Google it?
I'm having such a terrible time with my memory these days. No, apparently he's not in Jungle Cruise. Wow.
No, he's not.
How about that?
That's The Rock and I think Emily Blunt.
Yeah. Come on.
You know, if I had a heart, I would end your suffering as you flail about.
But you're a mean one,
going.
Mr. Winfrey. You really are a heel. Something Jackson.
Tell you what, give me $1 and I'll tell you.
Oh. No.
Give me $1. I have a PayPal account. I will give you the information. You send me $1, I will tell you the answer to this question.
I will give you nothing, and you'll like it.
You will continue to flounder then.
I'm almost... Where is his damn filmography? There we go. All right, just a few more links, and there's people listening to this and will be like, "It's this person, you asshole."
Oh no, I am all again. Like I could tell you because I know, but I'm not going to.
No, I know.
Your listener base.
I know you know. Kevin Hart. Wow, why can't I remember things these days? Anyway,
You could have saved yourself, and you could have saved our audience a lot of pain there if you just said you give me $1.
I will give you nothing, not even the
Just
satisfaction.
Hey,
Yes.
listeners, let Mark know that you hate these bits, and that you will help him pay me $1 on rare occasion to end them quicker.
So they should have had the dog voiced by
They
Kevin
should
Hart.
not have had the dog voiced by anyone, much less Kevin Hart.
And so the dog voiced by Kevin Hart should have been a jive-talking, wisecracking dog. And that would have been a memorable character.
No.
Woo! We got there. a bit of a circuitous route, but we got there. Marianne Johansson, a flick philosopher.
Oh, God, her.
This bitch.
Why her? Why does she still have a job?
Candy-colored slapstick and kindergarten-level humor make this perfectly suitable for small children and perfectly bland and inoffensive to the adults accompanying them. Somehow, I don't think Dr. Seuss would entirely approve. Pretty sure he'd cash the check, though.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, it's almost like they made a movie for kids by appealing to kids. Huh. Shocking. Revolutionary business model, that. What'll they think of next?
Peter Travers of Rolling Stone. You're a mediocre one, Mr. Grinch. Those expecting Cumberbatch to add a little Doctor Strange, I wasn't, to his take on Dr. Seuss will be sorely disappointed. And this animated take on the Grinch buries its kid audience under a blanket of bland.
I mean, who expected Cumberbatch to come in and do his mediocre American accent from Doctor Strange?
Not me. I also didn't expect him to do Sherlock Holmes. I didn't expect him to do any of his other characters.
He's an actor. He's supposed to be able to do different things.
David Kaplan of Kaplan vs. Kaplan. This is one of the few where him and his wife aren't back-to-back in one of these. Parents can take their toddlers to this picture and not worry about anything too scary. Just don't expect much in the way of entertainment for adults. Everyone in the theater was laughing.
Yeah, like, all evidence to, like, these people going, no, man, adults won't enjoy this. There's, like, empirical evidence to the contrary at this point.
We'll do one or two more of these and then we'll call it a night. Let's see here. Mark Dudzik of Mark Reviews Movies. The movie does too much polishing, adding so much that it all but eliminates the charm of Zeus's story.
I'm not sure how... No? I mean... Are you confusing, like, rough and unfinished with, charming? Like, that makes no sense.
We'll end with Scott Mendelson of Forbes, like we always do.
Oh, God, why?
It is harmless and colorful, but it fails to artistically justify itself.
Once again, how about it justifies itself financially? Because this is a business, you moron.
Actually, we're going to end with this one. Chris Knight of National Post. This man is very upset about being a movie reviewer.
Oh, one of these guys.
Every kid at the movies loves cartoons a lot, but this critic, who sees most of such movies, does not. It's not that I hate them, I just need a reason for CGI antics in any old season.
Wow. Got your small child to write a crappy poem for you there, did you?
And that, my friends, is the end of that.
Yeah, like, that guy's clearly just annoyed that he has to review a kid's movie.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, man?
Next week, as I said before, we'll be reviewing the Crimes of Grindelwald. And
apparently people aren't liking that, huh?
No, they are not. In 2 days...
It's kind of sad, because I really enjoyed... I was surprisingly entertained by Fantastic Beasts.
In 2 days, Andrew Graham will be on TV Party Tonight. We'll be discussing Our World War, which is a 3-episode series that was brought to you by the BBC that's on Netflix. It's a dramatization of the fighting that took place. Good stuff so far. I've watched the first episode. I gotta get the next 2 in before Thursday. But I've enjoyed it so far. It's different than what I thought it would be. I don't watch much History Channel, so I was not aware of the trends of the way that they're directing these things now, which is essentially trying to make it as realistic as possible, while maintaining some sense of drama. So it was interesting. Next week, in addition to Fantastic Beasts, is the JLA, The Tornado's Path. We'll have Gavin on. Hoobastank, Push Pull on the Metal Hammer of Doom, and Throssenblatt on Thanksgiving, again with an extra Metal Hammer of Doom. And then we've talked about it enough. At this point, we've talked about it so much that I think people just want to hear us review this movie because we haven't had a good screaming match in a while. Though I don't know what there is to scream about other than, why did you make me see this movie? Why did you make me see this movie? But November 27th, Robin Hood, Damn You Hollywood.
Wait. People have seriously been... Has anyone actually talked to you briefly about that? Or is that just you trying to hype up that review?
You'll never know.
That's why I'm asking. Genuinely curious about this.
But if I tell you, then I'm be telling the rest of the audience. We're not off air yet.
All right.
Okay,
audience. I ask Mark about this on occasion because it amuses me to do so, and you all seem to harass him about this stuff, which is fine. Keep doing so.
We'll also be looking at Hawkeye, the first 4 issues of the Matt Fraction series, My Life is a Weapon. We'll be looking at POD Circles on the Metal Hammer of Doom. We'll be doing an on-trial for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And then on December 1st, myself, Pat Mullen, possibly Gavin Napier, will be doing a live commentary for Deontay Wilder versus Fat Tyson Fury. And that is all the news that's fit to print here in November.
It's going to be a terrible fight. I mean, you're going to love it, Mark, but...
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be terrible.
First of all, Deontay Wilder has, the fucking wingspan of a 747. That guy's got long arms.
His arms are huge.
Yeah.
He's not a very good boxer. But he hits like a mule and he fights at heavyweight.
That's right. And he can reach across the entire ring from corner to corner. That guy has got ridiculously long arms.
And still ducking Anthony Joshua because he knows he'd lose badly.
Do your plugs.
All right. Mark mentioned that, again, we will, not next week, but I think in the coming weeks, we'll be reviewing a bunch of crappy movies. Because I have very minimal say over the schedule. By very minimal, I mean microscopic. Almost none.
You have as much say as I do.
No, I do not. That is an absolute bald-faced lie. I get one, what about one a year that I can just go, you know what, no, I'm out.
Right.
I can't do that
and
one.
This year it's Creed, which hasn't happened yet.
I'm not, again, that's the extent that I control the schedule. There's one movie a year that I get to go, you know what, no, I'm not doing that. And that doesn't mean it doesn't get reviewed. It means I don't have to suffer. I have zero control over it beyond that. You put up the schedule and you go, here, this is what we're doing. And then I laugh at you every time that it gets moved around because release dates change all the time.
Breaks my heart. I'm starting to take it personal.
You should. It is come on, you really think that there's not the 2 or 3 unpaid interns per studio that listen to this aren't laughing their asses off every time we have to come on and revise this?
I'm pretty sure, when we don't review a movie nicely, that they they go into work the next day what can we move? What's What can we move?
We review a crappy movie, we say it's crap, and the response is we're going to destroy the schedule.
We're gonna fuck this guy's schedule. Something awful.
Oh, that's hilarious. And probably true for at least one studio.
Yeah, probably. Well, at this point, it's probably Fox. That's what keeps doing it.
And I'd love to blame. I would love to say, you know what? I would love for that to be a bit, but it's Fox, and at this point, that makes about as much sense for their decision making as anything else.
Why are we moving this? I don't know.
This guy who has a low visibility podcast.
Some fat guy in Tampa has a podcast nobody listens to, but he doesn't like our movie, so fuck him. We're that Betty. We're Fox.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, hey, you have bands that are like, no, they negatively reviewed our movie. DCMA them on YouTube.
That's funny. All right. Finish up.
It's funny because it's true. Like that happened to you. That happened. I mean, like once it was documented that all the positive reviews on YouTube of this album were still there. All the negative ones got hit with copyright.
There you go. I knew it was personal.
So anyway, the point being, I will be suffering through a handful of movies. I'm seriously debating on at least one of them just not seeing it because Mark at one point said on a Facebook conversation, so I have documentation of this, you can talk about whatever you want.
Why did I say that?
So I'm genuinely considering, I'm not going to see this crappy movie. I'm going to see this instead, and I'm going to talk about this, and Mark can begin wildly speculating about why Taron Egerton has a career.
We actually did that once. Not necessarily that way, but we saw two different movies and reviewed them. We saw... I think you saw
they were so bad too because I had to see the most recent Paranormal Activity and you saw Gem and the Holograms.
Yep.
We both came away going, all we did was maximize our individual suffering.
Yeah, those were some miserable experiences.
God. I almost couldn't see that movie because it was released on part of the reason that theaters stay in business is they have an agreement with various studios, distribution companies, and whatnot that they will not put it up for release on any other platforms for a certain amount of time. I forget the number of weeks. But that was right around the time that the studio that did Paranormal Activity they had another movie too, like Boy Scouts and Zombies, that they were going to release digitally just 3 weeks after their wide release in theaters, and 90% of the 4 of the 5 major theater chains just said, all right, fine, we won't carry it at all. And I almost couldn't find a theater around me showing it.
Nice.
Oh god, it was such a bad idea. Now you're making me watch terrible movies. There's so many. Why? Anyway, this last Sunday wound up being a solo cast with just myself talking about UFC Fight Night 139, the crazy knockout between Yair Rodriguez and Chan Sung Jung. Genuinely one of the craziest knockouts I've seen in MMA.
Apparently the Korean Zombie was very ashamed of himself.
He should have been, which I actually discussed. Because he came out and said he was embarrassed about his performance, and a bunch of people jumped to his defense. You shouldn't be embarrassed. It was a great fight. No, he has to live with the results of this. You just get to watch it as entertainment. You get to watch this as entertainment. He's the one who suffers head trauma, got knocked out, and has his athletic aspirations shattered for at least a year. Yeah, you know what? No, that's a healthy response. You people enabling this level of stupidity with your sycophantism is what's not healthy. But I go into that a bit. But seriously, if you haven't seen that knockout, crazy knockout.
What did he hit him with?
He was bent over at the waist, ducking under a hook, and he hit him with an upward elbow.
Oh, ow.
I have video of it on my Facebook feed, or it's up in my report on 411 Mania. Look it up. It's a crazy... And it's at the literal last second. It's 4:59 to the 5th round.
Nice.
It is a crazy. It is again. I didn't actually care for the fight. I thought it was a lot of the same, and I thought it was. I just wasn't engaged. It wasn't boring, but I was not really into it. The way I've been into other fights. But that said, again, not boring, and an absolutely insane finish. Look it up. If you don't want to sit through the entire fight, fine. Watch 5 minutes and you'll get what the fights looked like for the entire thing. Then watch the finish because it's a crazy knockout. I talked about Donald Cerrone making history. He now has the most wins and finishes in UFC history. Good for him. I just ran down the card, which wasn't all that great. Wasn't as bad as I was worried about. There were some bad stretches, but there were a few good moments.
It ain't half bad, yeah, but it ain't half good neither.
It's barely a fourth good.
All right.
Again, it's like not half bad, about a fourth good, and everything in the middle is just kind of meh. Also, a preview of UFC Fight Night 140 when the UFC debuts in Argentina this coming Saturday, which I will be covering in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com.
Will you cry for Argentina?
No. I actually listened to Evita.
Don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is, I never left you.
In all fairness, The Simpsons parody of that is much better than the original. When Lisa becomes class president.
Apparently, I used to sing Evita a lot when I was a kid.
That doesn't really surprise me. So again, this Saturday I will have coverage of that in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. I will also this Sunday, hopefully with Jeff. He just had an opportunity to go to a special 25th anniversary screening of Die Hard, which, in fairness, I would have dropped the podcast to go do as well if I'd had the opportunity. I'd drop this podcast if I had that same opportunity in a heartbeat. Like, hey, you can go. We can talk about Bumblebee, or I can go see Die Hard in theaters.
If you had an opportunity to go see a screening of Die Hard, I would forgive you for missing the podcast.
No, you wouldn't.
Are we done yet?
You'd move on, but you wouldn't forgive me. So, the point being, this Sunday I will review that and preview UFC Fight Night 141, which is the UFC's return to... They're in Beijing. Might be their debut in Beijing. They've been in China a couple of times, but only once on mainland. Yeah, this is their first visit to Beijing proper. They were in... Where were they for that other one? Shanghai. Yeah, they were in Shanghai for Fight Night 122 when Kelvin Gastelum done knocked the stupid out of Michael Bisping. And prior to that, they did. They've done. What's that island? They did Hong Kong once or twice before that, but. Anyway, they clearly also don't want to return to Beijing because this card kind of sucks. The main event is a rematch between Francis Ngannou and Curtis Blades.
Oh, boy.
Alistair Overeem is going to kill some can in the co-main event, or be killed by him. Actually, Pavlovich... Oh, I know this guy. I've seen a few of his fights. He's... nobody knows who he is because most people don't watch enough MMA too, but... Pavlovich is pretty legit. Alistair Overeem might get knocked out again. Other than that, it's a lot of the, as Mark would say, the Chinese Chinamen, who are just kind of here to fill up space. It's not a very good card. Hopefully it overperforms, because there's a few fighters that are like, yeah, they may never be great, but they're usually in entertaining fights at least, so I'll preview all of that. Hopefully Jeff will be back with me. And then, yeah, Mark already went over what we're doing next week, and then, Thanksgiving coming up, so that's fun.
Goose is getting fat. Please put a penny in the old man's hat.
I am unsure of that particular reference, but all right.
Really?
I genuinely don't think I've ever heard that before.
Christmas is coming, the goose is getting fat, please put a penny in the old man's hat.
Yeah. That might be the first time I've ever heard that.
Wow. Okay. Weird. It's like talking to Jesse. Jesse doesn't understand a fucking thing I say. I feel like you guys like weren't born in this country.
Of course we were born in this country.
Well, you were born in Whoville. You Grinch.
I was not born in Whoville. I was born in Orem.
Isn't that just outside of Whoville?
No.
Are we done yet?
Yeah, pretty close. No. But, yeah, you have all these, like, weird regional things, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I had no idea about Dominic the Christmas Donkey.
The Italian Christmas donkey.
Italian Christmas Donkey, whatever. No idea what that was. I didn't know about Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
That one, I don't know how it escaped you. That's a Christmas tradition. It's not regional though. It's universal. It's Jim Henson. It's Fraggles. It's
I just guess I never saw it.
All right. With that being said, I think we've wasted enough time here. This was supposed to be a short review, by the way. Like an hour and a half long.
Supposed to be.
God damn it. All right. For the Grinch, Robert Winfrey, I'm Cindy Lou Who. Be well, be safe, and Merry Christmas.
Progressive presents Get Pumped. Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're gonna let your budget be the boss of you? Take control with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find options that fit your budget. Here's some music to get you pumped. Da-dong, 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 dang, dang. I hear your budget laughing at you. Oh, wait, that's just those kids laughing at me. Ignore them! Da-dong, da-dong,
Progressive
da-dong.
Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.